Casio make a big deal of this big orange button, 5 drum pads on its front panel. The tone is getting kind of lost in there. You end up hitting the edge and they're just not as responsive as they could be. And it will just do that, switch between 00 and 16, and we'll see how that sounds. Ad infinitum. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tones playing. Let's compare the Casio SA76 with the Yamaha PSSF30 and the Alesis Melody 32. A couple of years ago, I bought this. There is no sustain option for the tones. What the f*** is a liquid aristal shower? Hello and welcome to Casio Chaos Theory, and welcome to this very long overdue part 4 of my 4-part Casio SA76 review. Firstly, many apologies for taking so long to finally finish and upload this episode. I have a bunch of excuses, mainly that just before I originally planned on releasing this video, and after I had researched and recorded all my price comparisons as well as my conclusion segment, Casio increased the price of the SA76 and Yamaha only went and dropped the price of their Casio competitor, making the data I presented and my conclusion obsolete. Thanks guys. I kept meaning to redo those segments, but I was getting carried away with other projects, and part 4 seemed to constantly get relegated to the back burner. After a while, I thought that maybe people wouldn't notice that part 4 had never been uploaded. However, I had a number of people comment, and some contacted me, asking, "Where's part 4?" So it became apparent that people hadn't forgotten about it. It probably didn't help that at the end of part 3, I announced what was going to be in part 4. In the fourth and final part of my in-depth SA76 review, I will cover the remaining few features that it has to offer, critique some of its strengths and weaknesses, see what rivals it is up against out there at this end of the market, and also suggest some areas that could be improved upon and what features I would like to see added.
One eternity later.
Wow, I look so stiff and tense. When I was recording parts 1 to 3, I was still very new to making and presenting videos. Thankfully, I think I've got a bit better at being on camera since then. Also, it's hard to believe that the Casio SA76 was the very first keyboard that I ever made a video review of, and that I started filming part 1 almost exactly 2 years ago, back in September 2020. I'm also incredibly surprised and humbled at how popular those SA76 review videos have been and continue to be. Thank you everyone who has watched the first 3 episodes and have helped my channel to grow. So in this fourth and final part of this SA76 review series, we are going to examine all the remaining features of this little Casio keyboard, discover a surprise trick up its sleeve, highlight what I believe are its strengths and weaknesses, compare it with its nearest rivals in its market sector, And if Casio ever consider releasing an updated SA76, I'll suggest what I would like to see included in a Mark II version of this keyboard. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and finally complete our test and review of the little Casio SA76. Casio make a big deal of this big orange button, the piano organ changeover switch. Such a big deal, it's on the actual box, and it's advertising what it can do. The where is it? That simple tone selection piano organ tone button. And what it does is it switches between tone 00, the grand piano, and tone 16, which is a reed organ. Right now, when you turn the Casio SA76 on, it defaults to tone 00, the grand piano. And when I press the big orange magic button, it changes the tone to 16, which is the reed organ. And when I press it again, it goes back to the grand piano. And it will just do that switch between 00 and 16 ad infinitum. That's all it does. Quite why you'd only want to instantly switch just between a grand piano and a reed organ is anyone's guess. Perhaps if it could have been programmed to switch between two user-selected tones, which was a feature that some much older Casios had. In fact, you could actually program my CT403 from way back in the early 80s. You could program 4 tones or make it select between 4 user-definable tones so you could recall them at a moment's notice. And if you could do that with even with this one, if you could say, I want it to one tone on one button press and another tone on another, and I could program it. Let's say I wanted to play a guitar. I could put a guitar tone in, and also say I needed to go straight away to a trumpet. I could program the trumpet in and then switch between the two if I'm playing live and I need to do a very quick changeover. I mean, otherwise I just need to remember the number. Instead of pressing one big orange button, I can then just remember the number and type in or press 2 smaller black buttons to get the same effect. But anyway, so if that could have been programmable, it would have made a bit more sense. But in my opinion, this feature really serves no useful purpose at all and is little more than a solution looking for a problem. The Casio SA76 has 5 drum pads on its front panel. You have a kick drum, a snare, a closed hi-hat, and 2 ethnic sounding sort of tom-tom tablas. I'm not sure what the name of the instrument is. These sounds are completely fixed. You can't change them and they stay the same, whatever the pattern is that you choose. Another problem with them is that they're louder than the pattern drum sounds. Let me give you an example. So they kind of drown out the pattern kit, so you can't really play along with it, which is a bit of a shame. It would have been nice to have had a volume control, an extra volume control rather, for the patterns, and or a balance control, or if these would actually take on the sound that were in the patterns being played. So certainly when you get to the world sessions, for instance, you have this very ethnic sounding pattern. The pads still have their fixed sounds as before, but you have the Indian percussion playing. It's a bit of a shame that the Indian percussion wasn't added to the drum pads so that we could add something extra to the patterns rather than overwhelming it with the fixed drum sounds. The other disadvantage of these is they're activated by these silicone rubber push button things. You have to give them quite a bit of a push. They're not that sensitive. They're not touch sensitive. And you have to hit them pretty much in the center. If you hit them off center, they don't always trigger. So they're not too bad if you just want to do a straight beat. But if you want to start doing rolls, because they're so small, you can't really get two fingers onto them. Certainly for doing finger drumming, you end up hitting the edge and they're just not as responsive as they could be, which is kind of surprising when, if I show you this keyboard, this is a Casio Ratman from way back, about the turn of the 90s. It has these little yellow drum pads. They're not, you can't really push them, but they are really sensitive. You could do incredible drumming on these, as you could with some of the other Casio models, which had the little hexagonal yellow drum pads. It's always seems to be a bit of a backward step going from these to these. I'm sure there's some reason, probably cost or something. It's a bit of a shame that they could have made these more responsive and more flexible and perhaps been able to allocate the sounds from the patterns to them also. It's still a nice function to have, and if you use them on their own, I guess they can still serve a purpose and they're kind of fun to play. To demonstrate how some of the patterns and some of the tones are they're not compatible because of their volume levels, simply because of the single volume control and no other way of adjusting the levels of the patterns or the tones. I'm going to demonstrate this to you by playing pattern 49 with tone 49. Pattern 49 is one of the louder patterns, and tone 49 is fairly quiet. It's one of the brass patterns, one of the brass tones, and it's kind of more muted compared with, say the piano, which has got a lot of attack and a lot more volume. So we go back to 49, which is the quiet one, and let's play it with pattern 49. This is how it sounds together. The tone is getting kind of lost in there. But what I can do is I go to 48, which is one of the quieter free sessions, and we'll see how that sounds. Even playing with the quieter free session, it's still a little bit lost. I said it's just such a shame that just a separate volume control or just a balance control between the patterns and the tones would have made all the difference. It would have made it a lot easier to mix the sound of the two sections of the keyboard together. The patterns and the tones would have been just that little bit more usable. It's only a small niggle, but it's still something that's worth pointing out, I feel. The SA-76 can officially only play one tone at a time. Whichever tone you select on the screen here from one of the 100 tones is the tone that it will play on the keyboard. Right now we are on 00, the grand piano, and any key will be a grand piano sound. it's supposed to do. However, I have found that it will play more than one tone simultaneously. And when I say it can play more than one tone simultaneously, it can probably play 8 tones out of the 8 notes of polyphony. Let's have a go with that. I'll show you by selecting, again, an organ tone. Let's see which one's a good one to do. You can hear that's a nice, simple, low organ. I can move up to 13. It's a different sound. What I need to do is give my hands, or spread my fingers so I can play that. We've got 2 tones playing now on here. And we've got 3 tones, 4 tones, and I can even, as I said, use a number pad. Let's go to the string ensemble, 40. And let's see, I can type in one of the synthesizer sounds, 72. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tones playing. I can hold these 5 tones down and play melody on whatever fingers I got free using the tone of number 72. But the moment I take any of these keys off and then play them again, they will also play 72. So this one is still playing the string sound, but if I take it off and now press it, it's now playing 72. This one, same thing again. This one. And now I've released all the keys, anything I play will be tone number 72. So that's a kind of a bizarre little discovery to find out that this SA-76 is multi-timbral. Unfortunately, there's not really much practical use for the multi-timbrality, if that's the word I'm thinking of, unless you want to just hold down a chord using one tone and then play a melody with another tone. And I can give you a quick demonstration of that if I go back to number 12 again, one of the organ tones, and go back to SA-72, that nice little synth sound, and now play a little melody. Otherwise, there's not much else you can do with it, but it's a fun little discovery there. After having now explored all areas of this little keyboard, let me summarize what I believe are its pros and cons. Starting off with the pros. It has excellent selection and high quality tones. It has very good drum sound and excellent rhythms. It has a nice and light, easy to use synth action keyboard. It has a solid build quality. It has a clear and easy to read LCD display. With its excellent selection of sound, it can be used as a sole sound source. It's compact and portable and can be taken anywhere with you. It has pleasing aesthetics. It's easy and intuitive to use. It has good battery life. And it is suitable for all ages, 7 years and over. Looking at the cons, some might be a little bit nitpicky, but I feel that they should still be pointed out. The cons. It only has mono sounds. There is no fingered accompaniment feature. You get 10 fixed free sessions only. Mini keys are not for everyone. If you don't like small keys, you probably won't like this keyboard. There is no fill-in or variation for the rhythms. there is no sustain option for the tones. There is no octave shift. The drum pads are not as responsive as on some much older Casios, such as the MT520 and the Rapman. And though it's not common at this price point, it doesn't have MIDI. There is no onboard recording or sequencing ability. And lastly, the changeover switch. It would have been more useful had it been programmable. Overall, though the Casio has some drawbacks, it does still offer a lot, and it also performs well in all the crucial areas. In this market sector of portable home keyboards, you have to be very careful about what's on offer. If we take a look at the very lowest price keyboards available new, and for this I'm looking at the Amazon USA website, the first thing that you will notice is a complete lack of any recognizable brand names. Many of these cheap keyboards promise large numbers of features for their price, but beware. Many of these keyboards are of exceptionally poor quality in just about every area, from shoddy build to poor sounding tones and often half-baked features. Out of interest, a couple of years ago, I bought this, an MQ4915 all-in-one keyboard that, believe it or not, is described as a music workstation, which you can see on the side of the box there. And it cost me $15 new, and that included shipping, just to see what you can get at such a low price, and also to see if a cheapest chips bargain keyboard could be solely used to record an entire synthpop style song, as you've already heard me do with the SA-76. Here's a quick clip of what I was able to come up with using the MQ4915. Though I was able to complete that challenge, it was a very painful process, as it wasn't easy to find usable sounds. Plus, it took a lot of sonic manipulation within my DAW to sound anything close to what the SA-76 is capable of producing straight out of the box. Anyway, I plan at some point in the future to do a review of this awful keyboard, and also to show how I put a song together with it. But for now, the memory is still too painful, so let me put it to one side until I pluck up the courage to face it again. It's not until you get to the price point of the Casio SA76, and also its slightly smaller and slightly less expensive sibling, the SA46, that you hit the optimum bargain price to quality ratio. With that in mind, I had a look at what other similar feature keyboards are available around this price point, and for the comparison, I've picked the Yamaha PSS F30 and also the Alesis Melody 32. As mentioned during the introduction to this video, Casio increased their price and Yamaha dropped the price of the PSS F30 just before I was planning to release part 4, so I've now redone all the comparison lists and conclusions. But just to complicate matters further, it appears that Yamaha might have now gone and discontinued the F30 and possibly their entire current PSS range, as most sites list them as unavailable. Regardless, as it's the nearest competitor, along with the slightly cheaper Alesis, I'm going ahead with this comparison, else I'll never get this video finished. As of September 2022, these prices are correct, so if you are watching this video in the future, bear in mind that the prices may have since changed, and these products may or may not still be available new. Let's compare the Casio SA76 with the Yamaha PSS F30 and the Alesis Melody 32. The Yamaha is the most expensive at $59.99, closely followed by the Casio at $59, whereas the Alesis is considerably less at $50.15. The Casio has the most number of physical keys at 44, the Alesis has the least at 32, and the Yamaha sits somewhere in between with 37 keys. However, the Yamaha does have an octave shift option, so it does have a wider range. For polyphony, the Casio has the least at 8, whereas the Yamaha has 32 notes of polyphony. The Alesis is also supposed to have 32 notes of polyphony, though it's not entirely clear. The Casio has 100 tones, the Yamaha has 117 tones, plus 3 drum kits, and the Alesis has the most number of tones at 300. The Casio has the least number of rhythms and patterns at 50, the Yamaha has 114, and again the Alesis has the most at 300. Both the Casio and Alesis have 5 drum pads. The Yamaha has no drum pads, however you can place drum kits from the keyboard. When it comes to demo songs, the Casio has the least at 10, the Alesis has the most at 50, and the Yamaha has 30. The Casio is the only model to come with a graphical LCD display. Meanwhile, the Yamaha and Alesis both have numerical LED displays. For connectivity, the Casio and the Yamaha have headphone outputs only. The Alesis has headphone and USB connectivity. Both the Yamaha and Alesis have a sustain option for their tones, the Casio does not. The Yamaha is the only model to have an octave shift option. All 3 keyboards come with some form of metronome. Both the Casio and Alesis have 2 speakers, the Yamaha has just 1. Neither the Casio or Yamaha have MIDI connectivity, though surprisingly the Alesis, considering its price, does. And to power the keyboard, the Casio takes 6 AA batteries, or it can be powered by an optional AC adapter. The Yamaha and Alesis both take 4 AA batteries, or can be powered over USB. There you have 3 similar, but in some cases quite different keyboards, all competing in this $50 to $60 market sector. Straight away, despite being the cheapest, the Alesis stands out by having the most number of tones, rhythms and built-in songs, a recording function plus MIDI, though it also has the least number of physical keys with no octave shift option. However, I will refer to the excellent Keen on Keys video review, and I'll put a link in the description box down below, where Mr. Keen did a thorough test of the Alesis and concluded that quite a lot of the tones were either almost just duplicates and/or they were simply the same basic tones but layered with each other.
All other tones are just combinations of 2 of the first 127 tones. You can more or less forget about the categories. They have nothing or very little to do with the tones. For example, the first group is called synth percussion, but what we hear is the piano combined with other sounds.
He also found that despite the large number of tones on offer, not all of them were usable, an issue with other features in the Melody 32, therefore making this keyboard a good, or bad case study example, of quantity over quality. Meanwhile, the Casio and the Yamaha make everything count. I am not anywhere near as familiar with the Yamaha as I am with the Casio, but I have no doubt going by reviews, and again check out Keen on Keys for a great review of this Yamaha model, that it too has an excellent selection of high quality and very usable tones. The same would also apply to the rhythms, and though the Casio has the least amount at only 50, the drum sounds are superb, and the wide selection of styles is impressive. If we compare the specifications of the Casio and the Yamaha, likely the Yamaha wins out here by having an overall larger number of tones and rhythm than the Casio does, as well as being offered at almost the same price, subject to availability. As some of you might already be aware, the SA-76 has been on sale for over a decade, and according to Wikipedia, it was released back in 2010. It's probably about time for an updated model, and if Casio has that in the works and would like suggestions of features that they could add to an SA-76 Mark II, here's my wish list of what I'd like to see included. Firstly, I would like to see it have stereo sounds, and these could also come from onboard effects such as reverb or delays or phasers, chorus, etc. It also needs, and probably should have had in the first place, a sustain option for the tones. I would also like to see a vibrato and a modulation option for the tones. Adding a pitch bend wheel would really start to increase its usability and usefulness. And if I really could add another wish, would be for a modulation wheel or even a momentary modulation button. Much needed on the SA76 is an octave shift option, so this would be really necessary for a Mark II version. I would love to see USB MIDI added, and the Alesis shows that this is possible at this price point. A line-out socket would also add its usability, so you'd still have a headphone socket. I would like to have more responsive drum pads as per the older Casios, and MIDI assignable controls would be great. You could use these drum pads, for instance, and if I could really add some extra features, I'd love to see 2, 3, or 4 control knobs that you could start to use this as a MIDI controller keyboard. And lastly, a backlit display, and this is pretty much a prerequisite in this day and age. We interrupt this broadcast to inform you that during the editing of this video, it was brought to light that Casio are about to release a successor to the SA46 and 47 models, the SA50. This new model is scheduled for release in October 2022 and appears to include some new features that I have requested in my wish list for a potential updated SA76. Currently, there is no announcement for an SA76 successor, though just maybe Casio has one in the pipeline. Normal programming will now resume. I'd like to see all these features added to make a super portable and self-contained keyboard that could also double up as a mini MIDI controller. This wouldn't even be a first for Casio because they already went down this path with the GZ5 back in the 1990s. A tiny keyboard that has its own sounds on board and it doubles up as a MIDI controller. Come on Casio, these small feature-packed keyboards are what you are so good at and known for. So how about an updated and improved SA76 that can also be a compact MIDI controller keyboard? I, for one, would love to have such a useful small Casio with modern features sitting on my work desk. At the time of filming, September 2022, the Casio SA76 and also the 77 and 78 is still an excellent keyboard for its price. Its nearest rivals in terms of features and quality are likely the entry-level Yamaha PSS F30, which has possibly been discontinued, and the Alesis Melody 32. Like the Casio, these both have some advantages and individual strengths as well as drawbacks. The Yamaha overall just edges out over the Casio, especially with its price drop. That if you can find one for sale. And unless you absolutely must have MIDI connectivity, the Alesis doesn't appear to be in the same league as its two contemporaries in terms of build and sound quality, plus it does have some significant drawbacks. There are also many built down to a price cheap Chinese keyboards on offer, not to be confused with the higher quality Chinese built recognized brand products. These dubious keyboards are easily spotted as they often come with no-name strange manufacturers' names on them, along with terrible translations. I mean, what the f*** is a liquid aerosol shower? Plus, their prices are less expensive, often considerably than the SA series Casios. Be warned, as many of these are very poorly constructed, with equally bad sound, making them nowhere near the same league as the Casio sound and build quality. I also want to mention that though Casio market the SA76 for children, there is absolutely no reason why people of all ages cannot find it useful. Its excellent sound, portability, and superb battery life make it a great keyboard to throw into a backpack, sling onto the backseat of a car, and take anywhere. You can be working on a musical idea at home, on a train, on a beach, by the pool, on the side of a mountain even. Plug in headphones and you won't disturb anyone. With a headphone line out, you can also record into mobile recording devices, though with no dedicated line out, plugging into the mini socket cuts off the speakers. The lack of MIDI and no expression controls make the SA76 harder to use as the sole sound source. However, because of its wide selection of good quality sounds, it can be used as a sole sound source for a project. I used my SA76 to create an entire track inspired by Harold Faltermeyer's Axel F, and I used the free Audacity recording software to do all the recording, mixing, and editing. I surprised myself as to how good I was able to make it sound with just the raw SA76 tones and almost no audio processing. Lastly, a Yamaha PSS F30 may just beat the Casio SA76 overall, though they are fairly closely matched, but with the Casio having been on sale for a much longer time span, it can be found on the used market, often for rock-bottom prices, where it then really becomes a bargain. As mentioned, I paid $20 plus $10 shipping for mine, in excellent hard-to-use condition, plus it came in its original box with instruction manual. So definitely avoid those bargain basement keyboards available for less, and in every case I would recommend paying a little more and picking up either a new or used Casio SA76 instead. Look around and you can often find them in thrift stores, charity shops, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Gumtree, and of course eBay. Thank you for waiting for this long overdue part 4. I hope that you found this review series useful and informative, and if so, please feel free to hit that like button, and if you have any comments, please do leave them in the comment section down below. If you'd like to see more content from Casio Chaos Theory, please hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell so that you will be notified when new videos are uploaded. Let me finish this review series by playing out with a shortened version of the song that I wrote using only my Casio SA76 that was recorded, edited, and mixed entirely using the free recording software Audacity. All the sounds are from the SA76, and any added effects are only from Audacity itself. It did take quite a bit of editing and work to make the track sound the way it does, but I hope it goes to show what this super little keyboard is capable of, and also what can be achieved with a relatively basic and free recording app. Thank you for watching, and remember, keep it Casio.